dear everyone. I would like to invite all of us to listen to a sound of the bell. Let us come back to our breathing, come back to ourselves, and be preparing ourselves to listen to a sound of the bell to bring us back to this present moment, the moment that we are sitting here together.
Hello. Again, I'm Diane Gilbert Diamond, and I'm going to be facilitating this first scientific session. Hello? Okay, thank you. Thank you, sisters in the back. So I'm Diane Gilbert Diamond, and I'll be facilitating this first scientific session. So I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Sara Lazar. She's a neuroscientist and an associate professor in psychiatry in the Psychiatry Department at the Massachusetts General Hospital and Harvard Medical School. She has a very vast and meaningful body of research elucidating the neural mechanisms underlying the beneficial effects of yoga and meditation. And she herself has a long-standing practice of yoga and Buddhist meditation. Thank you so much, Sara.
Hello, can you hear me? Did I turn that off accidentally? Okay, no, it's okay. All right, I'm glad this works. All right, so I was going to talk to you about brains and meditation this morning. But I was talking with Saul, and thank you. And he's like, well, we really want it to be more experiential, and maybe you could talk about, how meditation impacts your science, right? And how, you're a scientist, you meditate. How do the two go together? And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. There's not going to be any brains, but there will be a little psychology. And I've never given this talk before, so I apologize if it's a little bumpy. This morning when I arrived, there's these lovely quotes on the table, and one of the ones on the table next to me was perfect. Like, this is my talk. This is my talk in a nutshell. So I'm going to read it to you. I'm going to read it to you a couple times. So the Thich Nhat Hanh says, "Don't throw your suffering away. Use it. Your suffering is the compost that gives you the understanding to nourish your happiness and the happiness of others." Right, I'm going to repeat that. Don't throw your suffering away. Use it. Your suffering is the compost that gives you the understanding to nourish your happiness and the happiness of others. All right, so what does that mean? How are we going to talk about this? So I know, some of you are monks, and I know Buddhist philosophy very well, but some of you are brand new, don't know anything about Buddhist philosophy, so I'm going to just give a tiny bit just so that we're all on the same page. Okay. Yep, that's okay. All right. So the very first teaching that the Buddha gave was on the Four Noble Truths. The first noble truth is that there's dukkha, and dukkha is often translated as suffering. When the first time I heard this, for me, suffering is like lying on your deathbed racked in pain. And it's like, I don't suffer. Right? But what I've learned since then is that it's, any form of irritation, discontent, mild annoyance, even just like just anytime things don't go the way you want them to go. And it's not that all of life is suffering, but just that suffering happens, suffering exists. The second noble truth is that all suffering, all dukkha, is caused by wanting things to be different than they actually are, right? The third truth is nibbana, right, which in the yoga tradition is sometimes called nirvana. So it's sort of heaven or the end of dukkha, and or enlightenment, basically all same kind of sort of general idea that there is a way to end the dukkha. And the fourth truth is that the way to end dukkha and get to nibbana is to follow the Eightfold Path. And what is Eightfold Path? Right speech, right understanding, right thought, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, right? So we don't have time to go into all of that today. But we are going to talk about quite a bit of it. So in particular, we're going to talk about the ones in red, but from a very experiential point of view. All right. And we're going to start with right understanding. So what is right understanding? Right understanding is just pointing back to the Four Noble Truths and saying, he says, understanding these Four Noble Truths in and of itself in a really deep way is essential to achieving nibbana. And he famously said, I teach only one thing, suffering and the end of suffering. And the first time I heard this, I was like, that's two things. But that's not right understanding, right? So right understanding is that in order, it's this quote, right? So in order to get to nibbana, you have to go through dukkha, right? You can't just boom, and become fully enlightened being without first dealing with your dukkha in one way or another, right? And to deeply understand the dukkha and to uncling from it, because in order to get to nibbana, you have to let go of everything. So you let go of everything, and that's how you get to nibbana, right? In a nutshell, right? So another way, in my shorthand way of thinking about this, is that all suffering is wanting things to be different than they actually are. And the way allowing things to be as they are is what brings us peace, right? And so this gets back to the quote, right? So don't throw your suffering away, right? Use it. Your suffering is the compost that gives you the understanding to nourish your happiness and the happiness of others, right? So don't throw away the dukkha. Use it. The dukkha is the way to get to nibbana. That's it. Right? Okay. So now how do we do that? And how's it relevant into science? Right. So I want grants to be funded. I want my experiments to turn out the way I hypothesize. I want the findings to be in the top journals, and I want recognition for my contributions to science. I want all of that, right? I want my lab members to do exactly what I tell them to do. I want friendly, respectful, emotionally mature members of my lab and my colleagues. I want less administrators of somebody's work. And of course, I want more time, more money, more people, more space, more. Right? A little bit of ego, a little bit of suffering, a little bit of dukkha, right? And so, especially early on, when I first started doing science, when things didn't go my way, I would get upset. And so, a big part of my practice has just been saying, when I get caught up in these moments, dukkha. Okay, I'm experiencing dukkha. This is the first noble truth. I'm experiencing dukkha, right? My grant did not get funded, and I'm experiencing dukkha, right? I must be attached to something. What am I attached to, right? So that's my new go-to jujitsu. When I'm feeling something, and I realize that, oh my God, it's like, what am I attached to? I must be attached to something, because I believe this Four Noble Truths. And I can tell you, in every experience time that I've gotten upset about something, if I pause and say, what am I attached to, I can always find something. I can always find that there is something that I'm attached to that's causing me the suffering. So then, there's various different ways of dealing with this, the clinging. And we can't get into all that now, but basically bringing a lot of mindful awareness to it. And that changes and transforms the suffering, the dukkha, but also changes and transforms me. And it helps lessen it. So now, it's not that I don't get upset when the grants don't get funded and things don't go my way, but the agitation is much, much, much less now. And also, very importantly, it doesn't persist. It's like, oh, I can't believe it wasn't funded. Okay, how do we rewrite it, right? So it's a lessening both of the intensity and the duration of the suffering, and it's different. Like, there's a lot less ego in there now, right? And a lot of these things don't bother me at all anymore, or things that used to bother me don't bother me so much anymore in particular instances, right? So it's not like I've got it all completely under control, but it's a lot less. All right, and so that's a big part of it. Right, so all suffering is due to wanting things to be different than they are, and so acknowledge them to be as they are brings peace, right? Don't throw your suffering away, use it. Your suffering is the compost that gives you the understanding to nourish your happiness and the happiness of others. All right, so that's just part of it. How am I doing on time? Oh, lots of time. Good. Okay, all right. Okay, so now, that eightfold path. So we're going to talk about thought, speech, actions, and mindfulness all together. Because for me, they all there's a lot of overlap and a lot of intersectionality, and lots of times a situation is not pure and clean, and it's all happening at the same time. All right. So the Buddha taught, this is actually going to go back, hold on. So lots of times at the end of a meditation retreat, you pay attention to your breath, we eat mindfully, we walk mindfully. It's very body focused. And so at the end of retreats, people say, like, how do I bring this home? How do I want to keep this up? And it's very important because the Buddha taught that there's 4 foundations of mindfulness, not just one. So the first one is the body. The second one is feeling tone. So feeling tone is just noticing, right now am I experiencing a pleasant emotion or a pleasant experience, an unpleasant experience, or neutral? And then the mind is the third foundation. So that's thoughts and emotions, but also overall mood, intentions, and whether the state is wholesome or unwholesome. There's a lot more to it too, like just basically any aspect of your mind, just being aware of, okay, what am I actually experiencing right now? By wholesome and wholesome, unwholesome is greed, hatred, delusion, and wholesome is not greed, not hatred, not delusion, or in other words, gratitude, generosity, compassion, altruism. All right, so just noticing, where is my mind right now, and how am I feeling? And then the fourth foundation is dhammas. And across the different meditation traditions, there's disagreement about what's included in dhammas, but they all agree that it includes these. And then every tradition includes some others, but they differ on what they include. So what are the hindrances? The hindrances are desire, wanting, ill will, sloth and torpor, so like laziness of mind and laziness of body, restlessness of mind and body, so worry and agitation, and doubt. And then the awakening factors are mindfulness, investigation, energy, rapture, tranquility, concentration, equanimity. All right, so so if you're going about your day and you're a scientist or an academic, it's really hard to pay attention to your body. Like, you can definitely get little hits of, okay, body awareness throughout the day, maybe your breath, but it's really hard to be like, writing email and paying attention to your body, right? Or like deep in thought and paying attention to your body. But in my own personal experience, because I live in my head, right, is that these other 3 foundations are way more accessible during your academic day. And so this is what I pay attention to. This is like a lot of my practice is being mindful of mind and thoughts and these things. And so, for example, so when actually speaking, it can be hard, but writing email, it's been very, very, very rich. It's like, okay, what is my tone? What is my agenda? What am I trying to say, right? Lots of times what I'll do is I'll write the email and then I step back, pause, and then read it again and just sort of listen for the tone and for the, the agenda and where's the ego and what's going on there. And then, practice with that and then maybe rewrite it. But you can also do it, very importantly, writing manuscripts also, right? And also even like designing experiments, reviewing the results, and working with the data. I don't know about you, but when I see these really beautiful graphs in papers where there's like a line and all the dots are right along the line, I get jealous because my data is ugly. There'll be dots along the line, but there's all these dots all over the place, right? And it's really tempting to say, well, that person, well, there's reasons why we can, throw that person's data out. And oh yeah, that person, yeah, we can throw their data out too. You can't do that, right? It's tempting, but you cannot do that. Right, and so it's honesty, right action, right? Being honest that yeah, the data is messy, and it's not maybe as clean as we want. Sometimes we find the exact opposite of what we hypothesize. Sometimes we find nothing. So lots of intellectual humility, lots of honesty, and then also so then writing it up. Lots of times I'll read other people's papers, and it's like the data was also ugly, and the data maybe went opposite of what they hypothesized, but they'll find reasons to, still make the conclusion that, oh yes, meditation does this great thing for you. It's like, no, the data didn't show that, but, so not everyone does that, but it's really, for me, I'm talking fast. For me, this is a big part of my practice, is trying really hard to just, this is the data, this is what I found. Let the chips fall where it may. Designing the experiments. So I use MRI. There's also EEG. There's also PET imaging, right? So PET imaging is where you inject radioactive compounds into people, and the part of the brain that's most active will take up those compounds. And there's some really cool, interesting experiments that I would love to use PET imaging to answer with meditation. My number one rule is that if I want to be a subject, I won't do it to my, if I want to do that to me, I won't do it to my subjects, right? And I would not let anyone inject me with radioactivity. And if it was like for medical purpose, but not just for science. And so although I really want to do that, I won't do it because I want to be the subject in that experiment, right? So those are just some of the examples of, doing that. Biases, while hiring people, trying to be aware of biases, again, attitudes, agendas, all of this. And so as you can see, it's like, okay, what part of science is not practice? We really can practice 24/7 if we choose. So with that, I'm going to leave it with the all suffering is due to wanting things to be different than they are, and acknowledging things to be as they are brings peace. And then, don't throw your suffering away. Use it. Your suffering is the compost, right? The compost. The thing about that, compost is like, manure, right? It's ugly. But it gives you the understanding, the right understanding to nourish your happiness and the happiness of others, right? So with that, I'll say thank you.